Welcome. Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer about one of the solar system's absolute most fascinating mysteries. We're going to look at a cosmic detective story that literally spans billions of years and billions of miles, and yet the whole thing gets cracked by a single guy just sitting at a desk in Paris. The story really heats up in 1846, starting with a massive puzzle that completely stumped 19th century astronomers. So here's the fundamental question. How do you discover a giant planet without ever looking at the sky? Seriously, think about it for a second. Up to this point in human history, every single planet we knew about was found by someone simply looking up at the stars. But for this one, the ultimate prize wasn't uncovered through the lens of a telescope at all. It was actually uncovered right on a piece of paper. Let's get into Section 1, the mystery of Uranus, a wobbly orbit. You see, astronomers at the time realized Uranus just wasn't moving exactly as expected. Its orbit was, well, it was wobbling, dragging, accelerating, basically mysteriously deviating from its calculated path. And you gotta imagine the absolute panic in the scientific community over this. Sir Isaac Newton's laws of gravitation were the absolute bedrock of physics. They explain the tides, the falling apple, the motion of every known planet. But Uranus, it was seemingly breaking those laws. This was a huge scientific crisis. It meant one of two things, really. Either our fundamental understanding of gravity was totally wrong out at the edges of the solar system, or there was a ghost. Something massive, completely dark, and totally unseen was hiding out there, relentlessly pulling on it. The absolute crucial point of this entire story is that French mathematician Urbain Le Verrier used sheer, unrelenting mathematical brilliance to solve this. Just picture the scene. While other astronomers are freezing out in dark observatories, squinting into their eyepieces night after night, Le Verrier is just sitting at his desk. He's looking purely at the orbital anomalies of Uranus, crunching these incredibly complex gravitational equations completely by hand. And he had such fierce, absolute confidence in his math that he didn't just suggest a planet was out there. No, he calculated its exact position and mass. As his contemporary François Arago famously put it, Le Verrier discovered a new world with the point of his pen. He literally trusted the numbers over the empty skies. Which brings us to Section 2, Found with a Pen, Mathematical Triumph. The speed of what happened next is just staggering. Seriously, after being largely ignored by a super skeptical astronomical establishment back in France, Le Verrier mailed his final calculations over to Johann Gottfried Galle at the Berlin Observatory. Galle gets the letter, points his telescope exactly where the math told him to, and on his very first night of searching, September 23, 1846, he actually found it. It is literally the ultimate mic drop moment in the history of science. The whole world was completely stunned. And the rush didn't even stop there. Just 17 days later, William Lassau pointed his own telescope at the brand new planet and instantly discovered its massive icy moon, Triton. Just incredible. Moving on to Section 3, Missed Clues, the Lost Races. But here is the truly shocking truth. Humanity had actually been staring right at Neptune for centuries without even realizing it. The contrast here is just wild. On one hand, you have Le Verrier's absolute mathematical triumph, right? But on the other, you have what is maybe the most tragic typo in astronomical history. Way back in 1795, the staff at the Paris Observatory under the astronomer Lalande saw Neptune on 2 separate nights. They physically observed its position changing, but instead of realizing they were looking at a moving planet, they just assumed their own instruments were wrong. So they marked the discrepancy in their logbook with a simple colon to denote an observation error, a colon. They completely missed out on immortalizing themselves in history over a punctuation mark. And it actually gets even crazier. Imagine being Galileo, the literal father of observational astronomy, and having this majestic ice giant right there in your small telescope in 1612 and then again in 1613. But he dismissed it as just another fixed star lingering in the background. Now, to be fair, because of Neptune's immense distance, its movement across the sky is incredibly, painstakingly slow. So it was a fairly easy mistake to make, but it's crazy to think it fooled some of the greatest minds in human history until mathematics finally forced us to take a closer look. Okay, Section 4. Born 4.5 billion years ago, a deep migration. So now that the astronomers of 1846 finally caught their suspect, what exactly is this colossal blue sphere? Well, our story actually winds back 4.5 billion years to when gravity first pulled a swirling mass of gas and dust together to form the ice giant. But the truly fascinating part is step 2. You see, Neptune didn't stay where it was born. The early solar system was basically a violent, chaotic game of planetary billiards. Giant planets were constantly jostling for position, their massive gravitational fields interacting and overlapping. Scientists now believe that as Jupiter and Saturn shifted their orbits, their immense gravity forcefully kicked Neptune outward. It was literally pushed away from the sun, exiled into the freezing dark edges of our solar system roughly 4 billion years ago. And because of that deep migration, today it sits an unimaginable 2.8 billion miles from Earth. Just let that immense distance sink in for a moment. At that range, it takes 165 Earth years just to complete a single orbit around the sun. In fact, the sunlight way out there is roughly 900 times dimmer than what we feel here on Earth. If you were standing on Neptune at high noon, the absolute brightest part of the day would just look like a dim, gloomy twilight to us. Now let's look at Section 5, Inside the Ice Giant, Storms and Oceans. Basically, forget everything you know about solid ground. 80% of this dense ice giant is a swirling, incredibly hot fluid made of water, methane, and ammonia. This massive fluid layer is wrapped tightly around a rocky core that's roughly the same mass as our own Earth. So Neptune doesn't even have a solid surface that you could stand on. Its crushing atmosphere just gradually thickens and merges right into that melted, icy mantle. Now, when the Voyager 2 spacecraft flew by back in 1989, it captured that famous, beautiful, deep blue hue, and that's because the methane gas in its atmosphere actively reflects blue light. But under the James Webb Space Telescope's incredibly powerful near-infrared gaze, the whole story changes completely. In infrared, the methane gas strongly absorbs the light, making the planet look incredibly dark, almost ghostly, except for its bright, high-altitude methane ice clouds that are vigorously reflecting sunlight back to the lens. Okay, now prepare yourself for the weather. 1,200 miles per hour. That is the speed of Neptune's winds. To put this in human perspective, Earth's worst, most destructive hurricanes max out around, 250 miles per hour? But Neptune's supersonic winds whip frozen methane clouds across the entire planet at a terrifying 1,200 miles per hour. And this sets up an incredible paradox. How on Earth does the planet furthest from the sun's driving energy actually manage to have the most violent, high-speed winds in the entire solar system? Well, the answer to that wild weather might actually lie deep within. Down beneath those violent storms lies a completely mind-bending phase of matter called super-ionic water. Scientists actually believe there's a literal ocean of super-hot, electrically conductive water trapped under those freezing top clouds. And you might be wondering, why doesn't it just boil away into steam? It's because the incredibly high, crushing pressure deep inside the planet keeps it stably locked in this hot, dense, totally exotic state. And this brings us to a really fascinating piece of modern research. A 2011 study published in the journal Icarus pointed out that this stably stratified super-ionic water shell is exactly what generates Neptune's bizarre, totally off-center magnetic field. See, unlike Earth's simple north-south dipole, Neptune's non-dipolar internal dynamo proves that this world is just weird, wild, and incredibly complex, all the way down to its core. So think about this. If a whole ice giant could hide out there unseen, dismissed as a mere star by Galileo or as a catalog error in Paris, until mathematics finally forced us to look at it in 1846, it really leaves us wondering, what else is waiting out in the dark? Could there be a Planet 9, or maybe other massive bodies just waiting for a sharp mind to discover them with the point of a pen? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this leaves you with a profound sense of just how much we still have to uncover right in our own cosmic backyard.